It's been over 2 months ever since the war in West Asia started, and questions are only growing louder. A top US economist has called this not just a war of choice, but a war of whim, because he said that this was not a war that was advisable, planned, or supported by the people inside the country. Listen in to what he said.
Well, this is, of course, a war that never should have happened. It's even too dignified to call it a war of choice. I would call it a war of whim, because this was not a war that was necessary, advisable, thought through, planned, or supported inside the United States. Israel has wanted the United States to wage this war for decades.
All right, so a top US economist has called this war not just a war of choice, but a war of whim. In fact, as you heard in the statement, he said that this is not a war that people wanted. In fact, it is even too dignified to call this a war of choice. I would call this a war of whim. Let me go across to my colleague Mayank, who's been tracking all the details. Good morning, Mayank. This is very important because a top US economist has said that this is not a war that should have happened at all. It was something that Israel wanted for long and something people of US never supported. How crucial is this comment, especially in the backdrop of the falling approval ratings of US President Donald Trump?
To begin with, these are very important statements. In fact, important in the sense that these are reinforcing the kind of analysis which had been happening right from the beginning of the war. Why am I saying it? Actually, as far as evidence is concerned, you can understand that when the war started, US had been the one which came out, or in fact the president was the one that they had been winning the war. But now you can see the kind of protraction which has taken place. It is almost 2 months now. Even if the hardcore military operations have stopped, there is a major and the trouble for the larger world has been there. So you can understand the war which was unplanned, as the Economist has already said. It was absolutely unplanned with no major goals, and even if there were goals, none of them have met the end, which were initially defined as regime change, destruction of military industrial capability of Iran, and none of them has taken place, because till end Iran was able to fire its missiles. So both these statements are reinforcement of the kind of analysis which has been happening right from the beginning of the war, which is 28th of February.
Absolutely, because it's been more than 2 months ever since the war started in West Asia, and the questions are only growing louder. Thanks so much, Mayank, for getting us all those details with this.